This story is about the painful circle of life, how pride and silence between a father and son can destroy what love tried to protect. It shows how we often repeat the mistakes of those who raised us, realizing the value of family only when it's too late. The echoes of pride and love reminds us that no success can replace the warmth of forgiveness, and that sometimes understanding comes only after loss. The rain fell softly over the old wooden house, washing the dust from the porch but not the bitterness inside it. William sat near the fireplace, staring into the flames, his calloused hands folded together. His son Ethan stood across the room, young, proud, and restless. The silence between them was heavier than the storm outside. "Dad," Ethan finally said, his voice tight. "I'm not asking for your permission. I'm telling you, I'm going to marry Lila." William turned his tired eyes toward his son. "I know what you're saying, Ethan, but you're not listening to what I've been trying to tell you. That girl, she doesn't love you the way you think she does. Her family." "Her family?" Ethan interrupted, his tone sharp. "Her family is rich, respected, and they treat me better than you do. You've never believed in me." William sighed. "I've believed in you more than anyone ever could. I worked my whole life to give you this home, this land, but I won't let you throw everything away for someone who only loves your comfort. Not your soul." Ethan's jaw clenched. "You don't know her. You just don't like her because she isn't poor like us." "That's not true," William said softly. "I don't care about money, but I see something in her eyes. Pride, not love. And pride destroys homes faster than fire." Ethan took a step closer. His eyes burned with stubborn anger. "I'm not you. Dad, I don't want to die working in fields and fixing broken fences. I want a life that matters." William's voice broke a little. "And what do you think matters, son? Fancy clothes? A name people whisper with envy? A house so big you can't hear your own children cry?" He stood slowly. "A life that matters is built with respect, not rebellion." Ethan laughed bitterly. "You think I'm rebelling? I'm growing up. You're just afraid I'll do better than you." The words hit William like a slap. He closed his eyes for a moment, breathing deeply as if trying to swallow his pain. "Better than me?" he whispered. "If doing better means forgetting who raised you, then yes, maybe you will." The clock ticked in the background. The rain outside grew louder, pounding against the windows like a warning. Ethan walked toward the door. "I'm leaving tonight. Lila and I are moving to the city. You can keep your land and your old-fashioned morals." William's hands trembled. "Ethan, don't do this. You'll regret it. I'm your father. One day you'll understand the pain of being left behind." "I already understand," Ethan snapped. "You've been holding me back all my life." The old man's eyes filled with tears he tried to hide. "Son, I gave you everything I had." Ethan turned, his face cold. "And now I'm taking my own path." The door slammed. The sound echoed through the empty house like thunder. William didn't move for a long time. He stood staring at the door, the rain pouring harder now, his heart breaking quietly. Hours later, he walked to his son's room. The shelves were empty, the bed neatly made. Only a photograph remained, Ethan as a child, sitting on his father's shoulders, both of them laughing under the same sun that now hid behind clouds. William sat on the bed and held the photograph to his chest. His lips trembled. "You'll understand one day, my boy," he whispered. "When you have children of your own, you'll understand." 2 weeks later, the village knew everything. Ethan had left with Lila to the city. Some pitied William. Others called it the natural way of life, sons leaving their fathers behind. But those who looked into William's eyes saw something deeper than loneliness. They saw regret mixed with love he could never stop feeling. He continued to live in the house alone. Every morning he walked to the fields with aching knees and tired arms. Sometimes he would stop and stare at the road that led to the city, hoping to see Ethan coming home. He never did. Meanwhile, in the city, Ethan was living a dream. Lila's world was different, bright, loud, and full of laughter that seemed endless. They rented a small apartment, decorated with her expensive taste. Ethan got a job at a furniture company, something respectable. For the first time, he felt proud, independent, successful, and free of his father's shadow. But at night, when he lay beside Lila, sometimes the silence between them reminded him of home, the smell of burning wood, his father's quiet humming, the sound of rain on the old roof. He would shake the thoughts away, convincing himself he'd made the right choice. One evening, Lila asked, "Did your father ever call?" Ethan shook his head. "No, and I'm not calling him either. He made his choice." She smiled faintly. "Good. You're not a boy anymore." Ethan, don't let anyone control you, not even your past. Her words fed his pride, but something inside him wilted. He remembered the last look in his father's eyes. Not anger, not disappointment, but a kind of sadness that cut deeper than hate. Days turned into months. Ethan got promoted. Lila got everything she wanted: clothes, jewelry, and a new apartment. But with every success, Ethan felt a strange emptiness growing. He often found himself staring at old men on the street, their wrinkled faces reminding him of the one he'd left behind. Sometimes in his dreams, he saw William sitting alone on the porch calling his name. He would wake up sweating, heart pounding, whispering, "I'll call him tomorrow." But tomorrow never came. 3 years passed. One day, Ethan received a letter from the village. The handwriting was shaky. He opened it slowly, his hands trembling. "My dear son, I hope you're well. I don't write to ask for anything. I just wanted to say that I still love you. No matter what happened, you're still my boy. I'm proud of you. Take care of yourself and your family. Your father, William." Ethan read it twice, 3 times. He couldn't breathe. The words "still love you" burned through his chest. He wanted to reply, but Lila saw the letter first. "Is that from your father again?" she said, frowning. "Yes." "Then throw it away. You're not that person anymore." Ethan looked at her, shocked. "He's still my father." She shrugged. "Then visit him if you care so much, but don't expect me to go with you." Ethan didn't reply. He folded the letter carefully and kept it inside his wallet. That night as he lay awake, he thought about the old man sitting alone under the same roof he once called home. He didn't know that his father's health was already fading, the loneliness eating away at his strength faster than age ever could. Weeks later, Ethan received another letter, this time from a neighbor. The words were short, written in trembling ink. "I'm sorry to tell you William passed away last night." Ethan's world stopped. His hands went cold. The letter slipped from his fingers and fell to the floor. Lila's voice echoed from the kitchen. "What's wrong?" He couldn't answer. He just whispered, "He's gone." He sat there for hours, silent, staring at the rain outside, the same rain that fell the night he left. The sound of thunder, the smell of wet soil. Everything came back. Every word, every argument, every look. Tears rolled down his face, not for what was lost, but for what could never be undone. That night, Ethan took out the old photograph he had kept hidden for years, the one of him on his father's shoulders. He pressed it to his heart, his voice breaking. "Dad, I was wrong." But the walls didn't answer. Only the rain did, soft and endless like the tears of time itself. The city was brighter than Ethan had ever imagined. Its lights never went out, its streets never slept, and its noise drowned out every memory he didn't want to remember. For a while that was enough. Ethan and Lila moved into a small apartment above a bakery. The smell of bread filled their mornings and laughter filled their nights. To anyone looking from the outside, they were the picture of a happy couple, young, ambitious, and deeply in love. Lila worked at a boutique, selling clothes that cost more than Ethan earned in a week. She loved beautiful things, silk dresses, gold earrings, fine perfume, and she loved the way people admired her when she walked by. Ethan didn't mind. He wanted to give her everything she desired, even if it meant working late hours or skipping his meals. He had a simple goal: to prove his father wrong. Every paycheck felt like another victory, every step up the ladder. Another reason to silence the voice in his head that still whispered, "He warned you." Months passed. Lila would sometimes complain about the apartment. "It's too small," she said one evening, holding a glass of wine. "We need something bigger, somewhere that feels successful." Ethan smiled wearily. "Soon, I just need one more promotion." "You've been saying that for months." She set down the glass. "Don't you ever want more, Ethan?" He hesitated. "Of course I do." "Then act like it." That night when he lay awake staring at the ceiling, he thought of his father again. William never wanted more. His happiness had always been in the simple things: a meal, a conversation, a shared laugh. Ethan, however, convinced himself that simplicity was just another name for failure. He worked harder. He stayed longer at the office. Slowly, the man who used to smile easily began to fade. 2 years later, Ethan's life had changed completely. He'd been promoted to regional manager. Their apartment had turned into a condo, and Lila's closet now looked like a boutique itself. On the outside, he had everything he ever dreamed of. On the inside, the silence was louder than ever. Lila spent her days at salons, lunches, and social events. Ethan spent his nights in meetings or behind his desk, too tired to speak when he came home. They lived together, but the space between them grew wider each day. One night he came home early, a rare thing. Lila wasn't there. He waited for hours. When she finally walked in, her perfume hit him before her words did. "Where were you?" he asked quietly. "Dinner with friends." "At midnight?" She smiled, not meeting his eyes. "You sound like my father." He wanted to argue, but he stopped himself. He didn't want to lose her, too. Not like he lost his father. He turned away, whispering, "I just worry about you." "Well, don't." Her tone softened slightly. "You've been distant lately. Maybe that's why I go out so much. You're always working." He looked at her for a long time. The woman he once adored now felt like a stranger who lived under his roof. The next morning, Ethan woke up before sunrise and stepped onto the balcony. The city stretched below him, endless, shimmering, beautiful, but hollow. He thought about the village. The sound of birds instead of horns. His father's quiet voice calling him for breakfast. He felt a sharp ache in his chest. He had ignored it for years, but it was getting louder. "Maybe," he whispered to himself, "this isn't happiness. Maybe it never was." He didn't tell Lila. Instead, he buried himself deeper in work, hoping to fill the cracks with success. Months later, everything changed again. Lila told him she was pregnant. Ethan froze when she said it. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Are you happy?" she asked, searching his face. "Yes," he said, but his voice broke slightly. Deep inside, a new kind of fear took root. He was going to be a father, and with that realization came another. What kind of father would he be? He had spent years hating his own father's simplicity, pushing him away, and now suddenly, he was stepping into that same role. In the months that followed, Ethan tried to change. He came home early, bought baby clothes, read parenting books. When their son Noah was born, Ethan felt something shift in his heart. When he held the tiny baby in his arms for the first time, he thought of William again, of the calloused hands that once held him the same way. Tears stung his eyes. "Dad," he whispered softly, "maybe I understand a little now." Lila smiled, exhausted but beautiful. "He looks like you." Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe that's a good thing." For the first few years, life seemed peaceful again. Ethan poured his heart into being the kind of father he wished he'd been a better son to. He built Noah's crib by hand, told him bedtime stories, and promised himself that no matter what, he'd never let his son feel unloved. When Emily, their daughter, was born 2 years later, Ethan thought, just for a moment, that maybe fate had forgiven him. He had a family, he had love, he had another chance, but life, as always, tests every promise. As time passed, Lila grew more distant. She spent money faster than Ethan could earn it. She wanted parties, friends, and attention, things that motherhood could not give her. Ethan tried to be patient. He reminded himself that love was about endurance. But one night, after a heated argument over expenses, Lila shouted, "You've become just like your father, dull and weak." The words froze him where he stood. He saw his father's face in his mind, the way William looked when he had said almost the same thing years ago. The echo of that moment hit him like lightning. "Don't," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Don't compare me to him. You don't know what he went through." Lila frowned. "You hated him." "I was wrong," Ethan said quietly. "He was right about everything." She looked away. "You're losing yourself, Ethan. Maybe we both are." He didn't reply. That night after she went to sleep, he stood by Noah's crib watching his son breathe. The boy's tiny hand rested on his chest, innocent and warm. Ethan whispered to the sleeping child, "I hope you never make the mistakes I did." The next morning, Ethan found another letter. From the village, a reminder of taxes on the old property his father left behind. The envelope smelled faintly of wood smoke. He stared at it for a long time. He thought of selling it but couldn't bring himself to. It was all he had left of his father. The land, the house, the memories. He tucked the letter into his drawer and went to work, unaware that the same cycle of pride and distance was already beginning to grow in his home. Years later, Noah and Emily would grow up watching their parents fight quietly behind closed doors. They would learn to tune out the arguments, to hide their emotions, to build walls instead of bridges, just like Ethan once did. And though Ethan tried his best to be a good father, he didn't notice that his children were slowly becoming versions of himself. Proud, stubborn, and ungrateful. The pattern was repeating. The lesson was not yet learned. That night, as Ethan tucked his children into bed, the rain started again, soft and slow, like the night he had left home years ago. He stood by the window, watching the city blur through the raindrops, and whispered, "Dad, maybe life is just one long echo." He didn't know it yet, but that echo would come back louder than ever, through the voices of his own children. Years passed, and Ethan built everything he once dreamed of. Money, respect, and a beautiful family. But even surrounded by success, his heart felt empty. The silence at home grew heavier. Lila was distant, and Ethan found himself working late just to avoid the emptiness in his own house. One night, his son Noah asked him a simple question while doing homework. "Dad, what was your father like?" Ethan froze. He hadn't spoken about William in years. His throat tightened as he whispered, "He was kind. He didn't have much, but he loved me more than anything." "Did you love him too?" Noah asked. Ethan's voice broke. "I did, but I realized it too late." That night, Ethan dreamed of his father, sitting under the old oak tree, carving a bird from wood. When Ethan reached for him, the figure faded, leaving only the whisper, "You left me, son, and now you know how it feels." Ethan woke with tears in his eyes. The next morning, he drove back to the old village. The house was still there, broken, quiet, and waiting. He sat on the porch where his father once sat, touched the dusty floorboards, and whispered, "I'm sorry, Dad, you were right." Before leaving, he carved 2 words into a piece of wood and placed it by the door. "Forgive me." When he returned home, his children barely noticed. They were growing distant, proud, distracted, and impatient, the same way he had once been. That night, watching the rain fall outside, Ethan finally understood. Life was repeating itself. The pain he gave his father was now returning, through his own blood. Time moved faster than Ethan realized. Noah and Emily were no longer children. They had become young adults with their own minds, their own tempers, and their own pride. Ethan often came home tired from work, hoping for warmth, a "hello, Dad," or even a smile. But all he heard was silence. Noah would shut his door the moment Ethan tried to talk. Emily stayed lost in her phone, barely glancing up when he spoke. One evening at dinner, Ethan asked gently, "Can we all sit together tonight?" "Like a family?" Noah scoffed. "Dad, stop acting like you care. You were never around anyway." The words struck him harder than he expected, because once, he had said the same thing to his father. Lila said nothing. She just looked down, pretending not to hear. Ethan felt a chill in his chest. His own home, once full of dreams, now felt like a stranger's house. He tried to fix things and bought gifts, planned outings, apologized for mistakes no one remembered, but nothing changed. One night he stood outside his children's rooms, listening to the faint sound of laughter, but not his own. He realized they were sharing a world where he no longer belonged. Standing there in the dim hallway, Ethan whispered to himself, "This is how he must have felt, my father." Alone in a house full of people, tears filled his eyes as he turned off the light. The warmth was gone, and the circle of pain was beginning to close around him. The years that followed were not kind to Ethan. The company he had worked for shut down, and suddenly the man who once provided everything couldn't even pay the bills. He tried to stay strong, selling his car, taking smaller jobs. But the shame in his children's eyes was unbearable. Noah started avoiding him, embarrassed to be seen with his father. Emily complained about everything, her clothes, her phone, her life. Lila, once full of love, had turned cold. She no longer looked at Ethan the same way. Their dinners became wordless, their bedroom silent. One evening, Ethan overheard Noah talking to a friend. "My dad's a loser now. He used to act like he was better than everyone." Those words broke him more than any failure could. Ethan sat alone in the dark living room, staring at the family photo on the wall, smiling faces frozen in time. He whispered, "Maybe this is what I gave my father too." Pain wrapped in silence. Days passed. His health weakened. Stress carved lines into his face, and hope slipped through his fingers like dust. One night, as rain fell outside, Ethan remembered the night his father left. How he'd slammed the door and shouted, "I don't need you." Now, sitting in the same darkness, he finally understood the weight of those words. A single tear rolled down his cheek as he murmured, "I deserve this, because I forgot what love really was." The man who once stood tall had fallen, not by fate, but by his own choices. The house that once echoed with laughter now felt like a prison. Ethan could feel it in the distance, the coldness, the quiet plans whispered behind closed doors. One evening, he walked into the living room and found Noah and Emily arguing with Lila. Their voices dropped the moment he entered. "What's going on?" Ethan asked softly. Noah crossed his arms. "Dad, we can't keep living like this. You've got no job, no money, and honestly, no use anymore." Ethan froze. "No use?" Emily spoke next, her voice sharp. "We're tired of struggling because of you. You always said family comes first. Well, maybe it's time you step aside for us. Lila stood silent in the corner. Her eyes said everything, and she agreed. Ethan's world shattered. He looked at his wife, hoping for one word of defense, one look of love. But she turned away. With trembling hands, he said, "This is my house and my home." Noah replied coldly, "Not anymore, Dad. You made it your father's pain once. Now it's your turn." The words hit him like thunder. For a long moment, Ethan said nothing. He just looked at them, his family, his blood, and saw reflections of himself from years ago. He slowly nodded. "You're right," he whispered. "I did the same once, and now it's my time to pay." He packed a small bag. Before leaving, he turned back one last time. "I hope one day," he said quietly, "you never feel what I feel tonight." And just like his father years before, Ethan stepped out into the cold rain, his heart heavier than ever. The door closed behind him. This time, there was no one left to open it again. The house that once echoed with laughter now felt like a prison. Ethan could feel it, the distance, the coldness. The quiet plans whispered behind closed doors. One evening, he walked into the living room and found Noah and Emily arguing with Lila. Their voices dropped the moment he entered. "What's going on?" Ethan asked softly. Noah crossed his arms. "Dad, we can't keep living like this. You've got no job, no money, and honestly, no use anymore." Ethan froze. "No use?" Emily spoke next, her voice sharp. "We're tired of struggling because of you. You always said family comes first. Well, maybe it's time you step aside for us." Lila stood silent in the corner. Her eyes said everything. She agreed. Ethan's world shattered. He looked at his wife, hoping for one word of defense, one look of love, but she turned away. With trembling hands, he said, "This is my house, my home." Noah replied coldly, "Not anymore, Dad. You made it your father's pain once. Now it's your turn." The words hit him like thunder. For a long moment, Ethan said nothing. He just looked at them, his family, his blood, and saw reflections of himself from years ago. He slowly nodded. "You're right," he whispered. "I did the same once, and now it's my time to pay." He packed a small bag. Before leaving, he turned back one last time. "I hope one day," he said quietly, "you never feel what I feel tonight." And just like his father years before, Ethan stepped out into the cold rain, his heart heavier than ever. The door closed behind him. This time, there was no one left to open it again.